covered some of these things, but just for it being a complete answer in itself, what is important to you about living in a CLT? Location, community, cost?
Well, I think you also, aside from the things I've already mentioned, you do become part of a community. So there are other people that are involved in the community land trust, both residents and the providers of the service, and you have training offered, and so you are part of a community to some degree. Now, I lived in an individual townhouse that was separated from all the other properties. There are some, when I lived in a co-op, there were 27 other apartment units in the same building. So actually it was part of a community. So you were a part of an extended family, more or less, as part of the community land trust. And if you were in a big apartment building, you could be part of a direct community. The co-op actually had a community room, which I used for parties and gatherings. So there was a community sense to it. It was in the location that I wanted. It was close to my job. It was close to town. It was a great location. What were the other parts you were asking about?
Location, community, and cost.
And cost, of course, as I said, it's at least 20% lower than owning a market property. So all of the above were benefits.
So how is the Champlain Housing Trust of benefit to the community of Burlington, Vermont?
Well, in many places, housing is getting gentrified, so the people who actually are providing the services are not able to afford to live in the communities where they work. And I would say in Burlington, that's not the case. They own 7% of the housing in the entire city, so they're able to provide affordable housing, both ownership and rentals, for people who want to stay and live in the community and not get forced out as the properties become gentrified. So that's one way they benefit. The other way is they're able to maintain an ever-increasing portfolio of properties. So they're constantly increasing the amount of affordable housing they provide. So they now have 2,800 properties, and I think when they started, they might have had 10, 35 years ago. So they continually expand their portfolio of properties, and they're making the housing much more affordable in the city of Burlington. So they're able to retain people who might have to leave town otherwise, and a lot of people who provide important services to the town aren't necessarily on high incomes. Artists and other creative people don't always make a lot of money. Even just service providers, people who just have regular jobs, teachers and city employees, they might benefit from affordable housing as well. Areas get gentrified, and particularly Burlington had a really old part of town, which was the North End, the old North End, which was dilapidated, and the Community Land Trust started fixing it up. Now, if that was in the market, those houses just would have become, they're really beautiful old houses. Once they're fixed up, they become extremely valuable, and that whole area would have become gentrified and driven everybody out. But because the land trust was there, those people were able to keep their houses and stay in the community. It's only like, 3 blocks from the center of town, so it's a very desirable location, even though it was run down at one time. But now that it's fixed up, it's extremely desirable. So those are all benefits to the community. Mm. And the next thing is it gets passed on to the next owner. But if that person happens to live there a really long time and pays off their mortgage, well, they can pass it on to their heirs, to their children. So they can pass it on even from one generation to the other. Actually, I sort of said something misleading. They don't have to pay it off. They can pass it on to one of their children, and then one of their children could take over the mortgage. So they're allowed to keep it in the family. They don't immediately, they don't get thrown out just because they leave or if they want to keep it in the family, they can.
And that's even if the kids are on a higher than area median income?
In that case, I'm not sure, because there is an income restriction. But the main thing is that it benefits the next owner, and it also benefits the next generation. So both of them. But that's a good question. It raises an important question. So, like in my case, when I bought it, I was at 80% of area median income, and then my situation improved, which of course happens when you have a stable housing situation. That's one of the things that helps. So my income went up to about median income. And if I had applied then, I wouldn't have qualified. But they don't throw you out because your income goes up. As long as you qualify when you start, you can stay there.
You talk about being a poster child. What do you mean by that?
Well, in the video Homes in Hands, they talked about a pathway to home ownership, which was you start out as a renter in one of the subsidized rental units. You could even start in a shelter if you were really down and out. Fortunately, I wasn't in that situation. But you could start out in one of their rentals, and they do have some rentals. That's one of their sources of revenue, and they're subsidized, so they're cheaper than market. So you could start out in a rental. Then you might move into a co-op where you buy a share of the co-op, and then you're provided with one of the apartment units. And then from there, you can move up into a single family or a condominium, what you call a strata title townhouse. And that's actually exactly what I did. I started in a co-op, saved enough money for the closing costs on a townhouse. Then I moved into a single family townhouse. So that's the reason I call myself the poster child, because I actually followed that pathway or that transition from a renter to a co-op to a townhouse, and then I recently sold it. And if I was following the trend, I would have moved out into a market-based house. But I don't ever want to do that, because I believe that housing should not be a commodity, and I would much rather stay in a community land trust my whole life if I can. But many people choose, once they've gained that equity, and now they have enough for a down payment, and they're able to move into the market, and that's their choice. And I would love to find a CLT property in Australia to move into, but there aren't any.
Yet. So how does someone get into a community land trust in Australia, Gary?
Well, they would have to contact Andrew or myself and get some help forming a community land trust. So you can contact CLT Associates online, and you'll find our information, lots of links, and our phone numbers. We're trying to work with resident groups and with community housing providers to create these not-for-profit community land trusts. We're trying to get one started in Logan if you're interested. There's one possibly up on the Sunshine Coast. There's two starting in Melbourne. So anyone who's interested should get in touch with us. We want to see them spread as many places as we can. There's over 240 in the United States and in Great Britain, and 0 in Australia. So we're really behind and need to catch up.
Great. Well, thanks so much for your time, Gary, and we look forward to getting you into a CLT property soon.